My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I waited for Sarah outside Chez Lumiere. The neon sign cast a red glow over the rain-slicked Seattle street, reminding me of arterial spray. I shook off the morbid thought. No more of that. Tonight was about new beginnings. I'm Jake Holloway, 32, software engineer and reformed true crime addict. After years of poring over grisly case files and spending more time with serial killer biographies than actual people, I decided it was time for a change. Time to rejoin the land of the living. That's when Sarah walked into my life. We'd met on one of those dating apps I'd downloaded in a moment of lonely desperation. Her profile pic showed a woman with wild red hair and eyes that seemed to glow, even through the screen. When we matched, I couldn't believe my luck. Now, as she approached the restaurant, I felt that same disbelief. Sarah was even more stunning in person, her hair aflame in the neon light, her green eyes finding mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Hey there, stranger," she said with a sly smile. "Ready for an adventure?" I managed a nod, hoping she couldn't see how nervous I was. "Absolutely. Shall we?" Dinner was perfect. The conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by genuine laughter, something I hadn't experienced in far too long. Sarah was witty, intelligent, and just the right amount of mysterious. I found myself hanging on her every word, drawn in by the way her eyes seemed to flash when she talked about her passions. "So what brought you to Seattle?" I asked as we lingered over dessert. A shadow passed over her face, there and gone so quickly I thought I'd imagined it. "Oh, needed a change of scenery. The forests here just called to me." I nodded, understanding the pull of a fresh start all too well. Well, I'm glad they did. As we left the restaurant, Sarah surprised me by taking my hand. Her skin was surprisingly warm, almost feverish. "The night's still young," she said. "How about a walk in the park?" My heart raced at her touch. "Lead the way." Volunteer Park was deserted at this hour, the Victorian-style conservatory looming like a ghost in the darkness. We strolled along the winding paths, the tension between us building with each step. When Sarah stopped beneath a massive oak tree, I knew this was the moment. I leaned in, my lips just inches from hers. But then the clouds parted and moonlight flooded the park. Sarah's body went rigid. She stumbled back, doubling over with a cry of pain. "Sarah? What's wrong?" I reached for her, concern overriding my disappointment. She looked up at me and I recoiled. Her eyes had changed, pupils elongating into feral slits. "Jake," she gasped, her voice a guttural growl. "Run. Please run." But I was frozen in place, watching in horror as Sarah's body began to change. Coarse red fur erupted across her skin. Her face contorted, elongating into a canine muzzle filled with razor-sharp teeth. Bones cracked and reformed as her body twisted into something no longer human. Where Sarah had stood moments before, a massive wolf-like creature now crouched, muscles rippling beneath its shaggy coat. She, raised her head and howled, a sound that chilled me to my very core. Then those feral eyes locked onto mine, and I saw no trace of the woman I'd been falling for, only hunger. I turned to run, but I was too slow. Sarah, the thing that had been Sarah, lunged, fangs flashing in the moonlight. I felt a searing pain in my throat, the warm gush of blood. The pain was excruciating, a searing agony that radiated from my throat and consumed my entire being. I could feel the hot, sticky blood pouring from the wound, soaking into my collar. The coppery scent filled my nostrils, mingling with Sarah's intoxicating perfume. Through the haze of pain, I stared up at the creature that had once been the woman I was falling for. Her eyes, those mesmerizing green eyes that had drawn me in from the start, were now filled with a feral hunger. Her jaws dripped with my blood, her tongue lolling obscenely as she savored the taste. I knew I should be terrified, that I should be fighting for my life. But some dark, twisted part of me was entranced by the sight of her, by the raw, animalistic power emanating from her transformed body. Even as my vision began to blur, as my life drained away onto the rain-soaked ground, I couldn't look away from her. She was a nightmare made flesh, a monster straight out of the grisly case files I had once obsessed over. And yet, I still longed for her touch, craved the feel of her body against mine. As if sensing my dark desire, Sarah leaned in close, her hot breath washing over my face. "Don't fight it, Jake," she purred, her voice a guttural growl. "Embrace the hunger, embrace the hunger, embrace the beast within." A smile tugged at my lips, even as the darkness closed in. And then, nothing. I awoke to the sound of my own screams, my body convulsing on the cold, hard ground. Pain racked my frame 1,000 times worse than before. It felt as though my bones were breaking, reshaping themselves beneath my skin. Through the agony, I could hear Sarah's voice, a soothing whisper in my ear. "It's all right, my love. Let the change take you. Let it remake you in my image." I tried to respond, but all that emerged was a strangled howl. I could feel my teeth lengthening, sharpening into fangs. My fingers curled into claws, tearing at the earth beneath me. And through it all, the hunger grew. A gnawing, insatiable hunger that consumed my every thought, my every desire. I needed to hunt, to kill, to feast on warm, pulsing flesh. Sarah watched my transformation with a look of pure, twisted love in her eyes. "Yes, Jake, you're one of us now, a child of the moon, a hunter in the night." She took my hand, her claws intertwining with mine. "Come, my love. The city awaits. So many tender morsels ripe for the taking." I rose to my feet, marveling at the strength coursing through my new form. The pain was gone, replaced by a sense of power, of invincibility. Together we melted into the shadows of the park, the city's unsuspecting populace our hunting ground. The rain pattered a gentle rhythm on the leaves above, the moon a pale, unblinking eye watching over our dark deeds. In the days that followed, Seattle was gripped by a new terror. Reports of brutal, animalistic killings flooded the news, the police at a loss to explain the savagery of the attacks. But I knew the truth. I reveled in it, in the thrill of the hunt, the ecstasy of the kill. By night, Sarah and I stalked the streets, our pack growing with each passing moon. By day, we played the part of the happy couple, hiding our true nature behind a mask of normalcy. No one suspected the monsters that walked among them, the beasts that wore human skin. And as our numbers grew, as our influence spread, I knew it was only a matter of time before the city, before the world, was ours. I should have been horrified by what I'd become, by the atrocities I committed in the name of my insatiable hunger. But the truth was, I'd never felt more alive, more complete. Sarah had awakened something dark and primal within me, something I'd kept buried for far too long. In her arms, I found a twisted sort of love, a bond forged in blood and moonlight. Together we would reshape the world in our image, one screaming victim at a time. As I lay beside her in our den, our bodies intertwined, I marveled at the strange turns my life had taken. I'd come to Seattle seeking a new beginning, a chance to escape my dark obsessions. But in the end, I'd found something far more profound, far more terrifying. I'd found my true self, my destiny. I was Jake Holloway, software engineer, reformed true crime addict. But more than that, I was a monster, a beast, a child of the moon, and I would never be tamed again.